I think you have already recorded. It's okay.
Yes.
You can start now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good morning to all. Welcome all to our webinar session. Everyone can write. It is being presented by our alumni Sangeeta ma'am from PGP 1986 batch. After the session, we request all of you to fill in the feedback form. The link will be given to you on your chat box. Ma'am, I request you to take over the session.
Good morning. Welcome to Everyone Can Write. Now you'll wonder what I mean by everyone can write. So here I'm not talking about writing a story or a novel or something like that. I'm talking about something else, some simple tips that will help you in your communication. Anybody who wants to communicate with the written word would like to know how to make your presentation more friendly, more amenable, more empathetic to your readers, to your listener. So here we go. You know, my best friend, every time she writes to me, she misspells my name. She spells it Sangita, whereas by now she should know that my name is spelled Sangeeta, Mal. It's Sangeeta, but this is how it's spelled. Did you just see what I did there? I introduced myself, but I didn't say my name is Sangeeta Mal. No, I tried to bring in a difference. I tried to say something in a very original way and in a way that reflects me and my personality. So it's not a generic kind of introduction. It is something very specific to my personality. So if you bring in your personality in your writing, that's the best way of communicating. So every word that you write, that you send out, should reflect you. So here's an exercise, and I assume that anybody who's attending this session right now has a pen and paper handy, because this is a session on writing after all. Introduce yourself in 3 different ways. So after this session, perhaps you can go back and write about yourself in 3 different ways. And try and make it as original as possible. Try and make it interesting and unique. Now, what do I mean by unique? Everything that you say has to be different. Everything that you write, there should be some element of the unexpected in it to make it creative. Some slight twist, if you will, something out of the ordinary. Can you think of that? Can you do that? That's what will create uniqueness. So here's a dialogue. Do you call your father Philip? Yes. What do you call yours? Son of a bitch. See the unexpectedness in this? You do not expect this to be the answer. You probably say, what do you call yours? Dad, papa, father, something like that. But here is something else altogether, and it brings a smile to your face. This is a pretty well-known dialogue from a movie called Love Story. And Love Story has, of course, some very memorable dialogues like, love means never having to say you're sorry. So bringing in a twist always makes you sit up, makes your readers sit up, and if you can bring a smile to their face, well, why not? So you say, if for instance you want to say, I love you. Now everyone in the whole wide world has said, I love you at some point in their life, you know. But try and hear yourself saying, I love you. How does it sound? Sometimes you feel very awkward saying that. It doesn't reflect the real you. You don't want to say, I love you. Can you bring in a slight twist to it? In your written communication, would you be able to change the very generic, standard, bland, I love you to something like, I don't like you, but love is a different matter altogether. You see that? You see how you've just brought in a little twist into this conversation, into this statement. So anytime you are writing, change your sentences, change your words around a little bit to see if there is something different emerging from it. But at the same time, don't get too carried away. Keep it simple. And what do I mean by that? You know, we always imagine that the written word is more complicated than the spoken word. And that's not necessarily true. In fact, the closer your language is to what you say, the nicer it reads as well. So would you really say the academic session was irksome? How many of us would actually say that? But the temptation to write something like that is very, very strong. And it sounds as pretentious on the page as it does to the ear. So instead of saying the academic session, what you actually mean to say is, the class was boring. This is what you mean to say, but instead you end up saying the academic session was irksome. So when you want to say that the class was boring, just say the class was boring. Don't try to use long words, because long words by and large hide what you want to say. And sometimes, and I think many of us have fallen into this trap, long words actually obfuscate and indicate that you're not clear about your ideas. So keep it simple and keep it what I would say, unpacking a package. Try and see if you are putting in too much information and too much jargon into your communication. Jargon is, it's a shortcut. Jargon is a shortcut, and in writing, the last thing we want to do is use shortcuts. We have to assume that the reader out there are all kinds of readers, and not all of them have studied with you, gone to school with you, and gone to college with you and know you from your childhood. So we have to assume that you're speaking to strangers, and therefore the use of jargon may not be appreciated by everyone. So consider this sentence. While India is an emerging market, it is also an asserting market in food and fashion with a strong cultural roots. Now I'm telling you, a lot of people, when they would read this sentence, would not know, unless they are from the consumer marketing fraternity, or in fact from the retail fraternity itself, or from the food fraternity or fashion fraternity. Then all these terms, what is emerging, what is food, what is fashion, what is asserting market, all these terms would be clear only to a very, very small percentage of people. But if you want to reach out to a larger group, then maybe you should recraft this sentence. And this is how I deconstruct it. And I said, As Indians become richer and more educated, so we have spoken about emerging market, their cultural preferences find more and more expression in the market. So now you have given a small introduction to what you want to say. And what you want to say is they can now confidently demand a cup of masala tea in most restaurants. And that is the reference to food, very, very specific. And wear paisley tops with jeans, reference to fashion, again, very specific. And immediately the reader is able to visualize, actually have a very clear image about what exactly you're trying to say. So try and be specific and try and avoid using jargon. Now look at this sentence. Coming to the next part, we have spoken about shorter communication, simpler communication, writing as you speak. And now we talk of something which is related to how to bring your language alive. And look at this sentence. I walked happily. What does it say? It says you walked happily. You can translate this, walking where, why, so many questions come up. But if you say this, my feet skipped along as my heart jumped with happiness. And there are two verbs here, and both of them have a very lively connotation, which is skipped and jumped. And the minute you use these kind of verbs, they immediately bring up a visual picture of what you mean by happily. Now, what exactly is the word happily? Those of us who learned grammar in 6th and 7th standard have heard of a part of speech called adverb. And by and large, adverb ends with the letters ly. An adverb is a word that describes either a verb or an adjective. So happily is an adverb. And the rule, broadly, the rule is that adverbs really deaden the language. And you don't want, when there is an action statement, you don't want to use a word that actually deadens that action. It is counterproductive. You want to use words that make your description come alive. So don't use adverbs. Try and see if you can use verbs instead. Try and see if verbs are action words and action words imply. So here's an exercise for you. Once this session ends, maybe you can try it on your own. Write 100 words on nature. And what do I mean by nature? Nature is anything to do, you know what nature is. You know trees and rivers and forests and flowers and mountains and sky. All this we call nature. And in one of my workshops, in fact, somebody also said human nature. All right, human nature. So anything to do with nature, and 100 words is roughly maybe 5 to 6 sentences, not much. So it's a short exercise. Just write 100 words on nature. Right. Have you done that? Okay. Now it comes the next part of the exercise. Write 100 words on nature without adjectives or adverbs. So remove all the adjectives and adverbs that you have used in your description. And you will discover that your passage makes no sense at all because you didn't use verbs, you used adjectives. When I say describe nature, the first word that comes to your mind is a describing word, which is an adjective or an adverb. But if you remove the adjectives and adverbs and fill in with verbs and action words and situations, suddenly your prose comes absolutely alive. So therefore, what I mean by this is There's something in the written world and in the movie world which is show, not tell. And what do I mean by that? Now, here's a situation. You have a movie in which one person is sitting in front of the camera and talking on and on and on. And then you have another movie where there's a heroine, there's a hero, they are running around trees, they are chasing each other, there is some action sequences, there are songs, there are dialogues, there's a little bit of crying. It's a whole 3-act game with plenty of action. Which movie would you enjoy more? The one where a person is just sitting and talking, or the one where all this happens on the screen? Probably the answer is the second. You want to see. You don't want somebody to just tell you. So you want to show. You don't want to tell. And you take a sentence like this. She belligerently asked him for his notebook. Now that, in my language, is telling. The writer has written what was going on. But if you want to really show what's going on, you'll have something like this. You get rid of the word belligerently and you say, the menace in her voice was unmistakable as she demanded, give me your notebook. Now you have more pronouns. You have nouns, menace. You have a verb which is demanded. So strong words peppering your sentence to give the same meaning which was very flatly given in the first sentence. She belligerently asked him for his notebook. So the other thing is that I have introduced a small little dialogue to make it up close and personal. So any communication that is up close and personal is always more interesting. Anything which contains a story in it. Even when you're talking about consumer research, if you're talking about market behavior, if you're talking about trends and patterns, the minute you tell a story, it becomes so much more interesting. So just go ahead, tell a story, make it personal, bring it closer to who you are. Let's take a look at this sentence. He was asked to go home and sleep off the liquor. And if we remember our grammar again, this is something called a passive voice. Means something was being done to him. We don't know by whom, but something was being done to that person. And I would say that whenever you come up with whenever you write something like this, try and see if you can change it to something like this. His colleagues told him to go home. They said he needed to sleep off the liquor. So you've introduced action into this statement, and this is called an active voice. Somebody is doing something. It is not being done to them, but they are doing it. And every time in written speech, also in written language also, the active is always more alive than the passive. So try and use the active voice as much as you can. And try again not to become too complicated. The minute you catch yourself using jargon, being complicated, that is when stop yourself and say, can I do something more simple with this? So say short is sweet. See if you can shorten your statement, and let's look at this. The sale of breakfast cereal, always a thorny issue in the store and a deep cause of resentment for the entire staff, most of whom never ate it themselves. had now become, with the onset of the festival season and the consequent demand for increased shelf space, an incendiary topic. Oh goodness, there's a lot of information given in this. The sale of breakfast cereal, always a thorny issue in the store and a deep cause of resentment for the entire staff, blah, 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 blah. Many of us have done this. We want to pack in as much information as we can straight away. But actually, if you look at it, what is it that you want to say? The main topic is the sale of breakfast cereal had become an incendiary topic. This is what you really want to say. Now, there are several reasons for something like this happening, and what are those reasons? It has always been a thorny issue. It caused resentment in the staff who never ate it themselves. It caused pressure on the demand for increased shelf space during the festival season. So these are the reasons, and you can give them separately. And if you articulate them like this, then your reader walks along with you and doesn't have to unpack your statement. So try and write shorter sentences. Typically, a sentence is somewhere in the range of between 15 and 20 words. So try and not become too involved in what you are writing. Keep it straightforward. But at the same time, don't make it too obvious. Try going beyond the obvious. Whenever you are making a statement, see if you don't have to drag the reader by the hand and force him to engage with your text. Leave something a little hanging for the reader to catch on later. So if I write this, I walk on my toes, balancing with difficulty until I realize that there's no need to soften my tread. My steps are muffled and my shoes, used to clattering on wooden surfaces, have found a silent landing. Out of the corner of my eye, I glimpse the curlicues and leaves in jewel tones. But now is not the time to ponder the richness of the surface beneath my feet. What am I talking about? I'm giving several clues in this description to indicate what I'm talking about without mentioning that word. And the brilliance of your text will lie in whether the reader is able to guess what you are referring to. Now, of course, in some of my workshops, when I've given such clues and asked people to describe, and it's like a game, where other participants have to guess the word. Sometimes, somebody will say, it is sweet, brown, and creamy. And obviously, that's a chocolate. But don't make it so obvious. Try and bring in your own little twist and see if your reader can catch up with you. And of course, in this description, I'm talking about a carpet. So, but while you're going beyond the obvious, don't forget one simple thing. And that is that the devil is in the details. And look at this sentence. He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish. Now, this sentence has just about 20 words in it, just a little over 20 words in it. But look at the amount of information that these 20 words contain. Every single word in this sentence has something embedded in, a bit of information embedded in it. So not a word out of place. So we know that it's an old man. We know that he is a fisherman. We know that he's a small fisherman because he fishes alone in a skiff. We know the geographical location of the man, and we know immediately what the rest of the book is going to be about. Because he has now gone, how many days? 84 days. He has gone now without taking a fish. So this is the first sentence from the book Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. And look at the amount of information. So see if you are giving your readers the information. When you are talking about a place, do they know what place you're talking about? When you are talking about an office, do they know what office you're talking? When you're talking about individuals, do they know what individuals you're referring to? If you're talking about quantities, quantities of what? If you're talking about markets, which markets? So is your information complete? This means that you are not making any assumptions, and when you put in that information, your readers can immediately refer back to it as they move ahead in your text. So information, details, you need to do that. You need to cover that little bit of ground when you're writing. All right, so I am coming now towards the end of what I wanted to talk about, some of the very brief tips that I wanted to give in this session. And I'm now coming almost to the end. So we have spoken about short is sweet. We've spoken about unpacking information. We have spoken about writing as you speak. So all this is some little nuggets that I have given you when you are writing. But I've left the best for the last. And what is that? You might imagine that writing is the battle. But actually the battle lies somewhere else. How do you and what do you do to win it? So there are two halves of this battle. The title of my session is Everyone Can Write. Now the minute you see that title, you know what the whole session is going to be about. It is going to be about simple tips of writing. And it is catchy enough that even if you are not a writer, you would be curious. Oh, everyone can write? Does that mean I can also write? So that is the attraction of this title. Everyone can write. So the first half of the battle, of course, is the title. Now the second half, in any communication, and this is true, for instance, if there is a college admission essay. Now imagine that there are 5,000 applications to a college, 5,000 essays, and the admissions officer is supposed to read 5,000 essays. Do you think she even reads half of them, 1/10 of them? What is she doing? She's looking at the first sentence and assuming from that first sentence what the rest of the essay is going to about, whether it is worth reading or not worth reading, is it worth her time or an effort at all. So the first sentence is the second half of the battle. Let's take a look at this sentence. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Now in a class of 25 students, more than half of whom wouldn't have picked up a book in the last, say, 6 months or a year, when I said this sentence, almost all of them raised their hand when I said, please tell me, when I asked them which book this sentence is from, all of them knew this sentence. And of course, it's from A Tale of Two Cities, Charles Dickens. What a powerful first sentence. What a powerful beginning. So your first sentence is the second half of the battle. Now, the way to do it is not to just agonize over the first sentence, because if you do that, you will never manage to go to the rest of your text. The way to do this is write your text first. Put down your ideas. Then apply some of the concepts that I have said in this session to the best of your ability. And then go back and craft the first sentence. Make it as powerful as you possibly can, and your job is done. Believe me, if your first sentence is catchy, you've hooked the reader. You've provided that hook, and now you can reel the reader in. So, thank you very much. And my last piece of advice on the secret to writing well is what I was told many years ago by my professor: butt on seat. You just have to sit down and start writing. Stop thinking, start writing. Everything else will follow. So thank you for listening to me. I'll be very happy to have you get in touch with me. These are my contact details. You can check out my Facebook page. You can follow me on Twitter. And anytime you want to reach out to me, of course, most welcome. This is my email ID. Thanks a lot. And now, if there are any questions, let's have them. Yes?
Hello.
Yes?
Ma'am, your presenter, this thing went off, ma'am, the slide.
Yes. I am
It's not
now,
showing now.
yeah, because I want to see if there are any questions.
Okay, sorry.
Was my presentation audible? Where do you get ideas from?
Ma'am, Sushma here, let me clarify. Ma'am, actually, if you see the chat questions, no, you can see, others are not able to see.
Yeah, I'm getting them. I'm getting them.
Okay.
So the first question that has come is, where do I get ideas from? And that's a tough one. I mean, you can get ideas from reading, from your own experiences, and even from prompts that you receive. Okay, there's a question about the novel being rejected. And I'm telling you, rejection is the price you have to pay for being a novelist. Jane Austen Rejection is part of a novelist's life, and you just have to keep submitting and keep revising what you are writing to make it more amenable. It just has to go on, and sometime lightning will strike and you'll be successful. So that is my own experience as well as a novelist. Somebody has said, Bhavisha said, while we remove adverbs, won't we miss the attention of the reader? And I repeat again, adverbs deaden the text and we should avoid them. Now, Rohini has said, while writing, do we have to concentrate on fancy words? Because I go blank when I want to put in fancy words. And my answer to that is fancy words, if you think of them as fancy, will look and sound very artificial. Use your natural skills. Then Zishan has said, is it necessary to punch in current affairs into the plot, like say Arundhati Roy or even Salman Rushdie? And I would say, run with whatever ideas you have. You are unique. You are a unique individual, and so should your ideas be. If your ideas are unique, I'm sure you'll find readers for them. But copying will always make it look like you are copied. Is it important to have a structure or an outline before sitting down to write, or is it better to just go with the flow? How do I answer that? It depends on your style. Both options work. You need to have something in your mind before you can begin. It could be an idea, it could be an image, it could be a word that is striking your fancy. But something has to be there, and depending on your own skill as a writer, you can go with that. So I'm going to say it depends on your skill as a writer. Yes, I can share the PPT. Please send me an email on, this is my email ID. So if you write to me on this, I can send my PPT to you. So there's a question, what would be an appropriate metric to understand which areas do we need to improve our writing in? Getting feedback from your peers is always required. Have a couple of loyal readers by your side. If you're still unable to reach out to your audience, you have to keep working on your style. Humor is always a good tactic. I should say that writing is called rewriting, which means whatever you write the first time has to be rewritten and rewritten until you are satisfied with it. And all good writers, all writers that you enjoy reading, do this as a matter of habit. They can go up to, one novel can go up to 20 drafts before it is sent to the publisher and before it reaches your hands. So don't be shy of revising and rewriting. All right. Thank you very much for listening in. And I've given my email ID. I'm putting it down again over here. Do reach out to me if you have any questions or if you think I can help you with any of your efforts. I'm not going to sit and edit your writing, but if you have any concerns, then of course you're most welcome to contact me. And if you care to do so, then do give a feedback on this session, and hopefully the Institute will get back to me on how the participants found it. Happy writing. Get that pen on paper and get that butt on your seat.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the session. Everybody, please fill in the feedback form. We'll look forward for your feedback. And thank you for the session. Happy weekend. Bye.